Every president enters the White House thinking the intelligence machine works for him. But since 1947, every president has inherited something older than his term, deeper than his campaign, and harder to control than any cabinet secretary. The CIA was created to prevent surprise, but over time, it became more than an agency collecting secrets. It became a weapon, a shield, a scandal, a battlefield, and eventually a public political force. This is not the story of the CIA controlling every president. That would be too simple. This is the story of what happens when every president needs secret power, and every secret power learns how to survive presidents. It begins with Harry Truman. In 1947, the United States was leaving one war and entering another. World War II was over. The Cold War had begun. Washington believed the next surprise could not be allowed to happen in the dark. Truman signed the National Security Act of 1947. It created the National Security Council. It created the Central Intelligence Agency. On paper, the mission was simple: coordinate intelligence and inform the president. But institutions are not defined only by what they are created to do. They are defined by what future presidents discover they can use them for. Truman created a machine of information. His successors learned it could become a machine of action. In the beginning, the CIA was supposed to help the president see the world. But almost immediately the question changed. If you can see the world in secret, can you also change it in secret? Truman gave America the instrument. Eisenhower gave it reach. And under Eisenhower, the CIA moved from listening to history to pushing it. Dwight Eisenhower understood the limits of open war. Nuclear weapons made direct conflict with the Soviet Union too dangerous. But covert action offered something seductive, a way to fight without officially fighting. In 1953, Iran became the test. The CIA supported an operation against Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh after a crisis over oil and power. To Washington, it looked like containment. To Iran, it became a wound that lasted generations. 1 year later, Guatemala followed. Jacobo Arbenz was seen through the lens of Cold War fear. The CIA-backed operation helped remove him from power. A pattern was forming: deny involvement, change the outcome, move on. For Eisenhower, covert action looked efficient. No mass invasion, no declaration of war, no American public asked to sacrifice, just secret money, secret plans, secret pressure, and a public story that could be denied. But secret victories come with delayed costs. What looks clean in a classified cable can become chaos in the life of another country. The CIA had learned how to move governments. Kennedy would learn what happens when the movement fails. John F. Kennedy arrived young, confident, and surrounded by inherited plans. One of them was Cuba. The Bay of Pigs operation was supposed to remove Fidel Castro without making the United States look like the hand behind it. Instead, it collapsed in public. The world saw the failure. Kennedy had to carry the political cost. The CIA had promised plausible deniability. What it delivered was a disaster no president could deny. After Bay of Pigs, Allen Dulles left the CIA. But the deeper lesson was not that covert action ended. It did not. Operations against Cuba continued. The machine had failed, but the logic behind it survived. Kennedy learned that the CIA could embarrass a president. Johnson would learn something different, that foreign war could pull secret power back into America itself. Lyndon Johnson inherited Vietnam and escalated it. The war was overseas, but the pressure came home. Protests filled American streets. The question inside government became darker. Were domestic movements being influenced from abroad? Operation Chaos grew from that fear. The CIA, officially barred from domestic law enforcement, collected information related to anti-war activists and possible foreign links. The line between foreign intelligence and domestic politics started to blur. Vietnam made everything larger: the war, the secrecy, the suspicion, the credibility gap. The government said one thing in public and studied something else in private. The CIA was part of that hidden machinery of doubt. By the time Johnson left, America was divided. Nixon entered office believing secrecy was not just useful abroad, it could protect power at home. Richard Nixon did not trust institutions. He wanted control. Overseas, the CIA remained part of Cold War strategy. But at home, Nixon's presidency became consumed by enemies, leaks, investigations, and eventually Watergate. When Watergate began closing in, the White House tried to use national security as a shield. The CIA was pulled toward a political cover story. The agency did not create Watergate, but Watergate exposed how presidents could try to use intelligence as protection. At the same time, Chile showed the global side of the same era. Covert action, political pressure, and Cold War paranoia collided in Latin America. The public did not see the whole system yet, but the paper trail was growing. Nixon fell. But the greater danger for the CIA was not Nixon's resignation, it was what came next. Congress started asking what else had been done in the dark. Gerald Ford became president after the scandal. His job was not to destroy the CIA, it was to keep the institution alive while admitting it needed limits. For the first time, the secret world faced sustained public investigation. The Church Committee opened files, questioned officials, and revealed abuses that had lived behind classification. Assassination plots, domestic surveillance, covert programs. The country saw a version of the intelligence state it had never been shown. Ford signed new restrictions. Political assassination was officially banned by executive order. Oversight became part of the architecture. The CIA survived, but it no longer lived in the same darkness. And then Ford appointed George H.W. Bush as CIA director. It looked like a repair job, but it also planted something unusual. One future president would not merely receive CIA briefings, he would run the agency first. Jimmy Carter came in wanting restraint. Human rights mattered. Oversight mattered. The intelligence world was supposed to become cleaner, more accountable, less reckless. Carter wanted a CIA that fit a moral foreign policy. But history rarely gives reformers a quiet room. The Iranian Revolution shook America's position in the Middle East. The hostage crisis humiliated Washington. Then the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan opened a new front. Carter's presidency proved that reform did not end danger. Rules could change, but the world kept moving. By the time he left office, Afghanistan was no longer just a crisis. It was becoming the next great covert battlefield. Carter tried to discipline the machine. Reagan would revive its appetite. Ronald Reagan believed the Cold War could be won, not managed, won. And covert action became central to that belief. If communism had allies around the world, Reagan wanted anti-communist forces to have support in the shadows. In Afghanistan, the United States supported resistance against the Soviet occupation. Money, weapons, and intelligence moved through hidden channels. To Washington, it was pressure on Moscow. To history, it became one of the largest covert struggles of the Cold War. In Nicaragua, the Contras became another front. Congress tried to limit support. The administration searched for ways around those limits. Then Iran-Contra pulled the curtain back on a system of secret deals, denials, and parallel power. Iran-Contra mattered because it showed that covert action did not disappear after reform. It adapted. The secret state had learned oversight existed. It also learned how power could look for loopholes. Reagan restored the romance of secret war. George H.W. Bush inherited something even more intimate, a CIA he had once led. George H.W. Bush was different from every president before him. He had been director of Central Intelligence. He understood the building, the culture, the language, and the instincts of the agency from the inside. As president, Bush oversaw the end of the Cold War, the invasion of Panama, and the Gulf War. Intelligence now served a United States standing at the top of a changing world. But the CIA's central enemy was collapsing. When the Soviet Union fell, the CIA lost the organizing logic that had defined it for decades. Clinton inherited a powerful agency asking a dangerous question: what is our mission now? Bill Clinton entered the post-Cold War world. The old map was gone. The new threats were harder to see: failed states, loose networks, terrorism, and enemies without a flag. Al-Qaeda rose in that space. The 1998 embassy bombings showed the threat was real. Intelligence warnings increased, strikes were launched, but the system built for states struggled with a network that moved through borders, money, ideology, and silence. By the end of Clinton's presidency, the danger had a name, but the country had not yet felt its full force. Then George W. Bush received the presidency. and the warning lights turned red. George W. Bush's presidency was divided by a single morning. Before September 11th, intelligence was important. After September 11th, it became central to everything: war, fear, detention, interrogation, surveillance, and invasion. The CIA went into Afghanistan fast. It hunted al-Qaeda. It became the sharp end of the new war. For a moment, the agency looked indispensable, the one institution built for a war without clear front lines. Then came Iraq. Intelligence about weapons of mass destruction helped carry the country toward war. When those stockpiles were not found, the damage was enormous. Intelligence had not just informed policy, it had helped justify history. The detention and interrogation program became an even deeper wound. Black sites, enhanced interrogation, secret legal memos. Years later, the Senate report described a program more brutal, less effective, and less honest than the public had been told. Bush's CIA was the agency of emergency. Obama inherited the emergency and tried to make it legal, narrower, and cleaner. Barack Obama ended the official use of the CIA's post-9/11 interrogation program. He signed orders meant to close one chapter, but he did not end the secret war. He changed its form. The raid that killed Osama bin Laden became the iconic intelligence moment of Obama's presidency. The Situation Room photo looked calm. Behind it were years of surveillance, analysis, risk, and covert preparation. Obama's era made secret war more technological. Drones, targeting rules, legal reviews, civilian casualty standards, and classified processes turned violence into a system that could be managed from rooms far from the battlefield. Obama made the secret war more precise. Trump made intelligence more public. Donald Trump did not merely receive intelligence, he fought with it, publicly. His relationship with the intelligence community became part of the political theater of his presidency. The Russia assessment, leaks, investigations, briefings, public statements, and distrust created a new atmosphere. Intelligence was no longer just something presidents heard in private, it became something argued over on television. The old CIA lived behind classification. Under Trump, the conflict around intelligence became visible. Biden inherited that visibility and used intelligence in a different way. Joe Biden's presidency turned intelligence into an instrument of alliance. Before Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, U.S. intelligence was shared unusually publicly to warn allies, expose planning, and shape the diplomatic battlefield. Under CIA Director William Burns, the agency operated in a world of great power competition: Russia, China, technology, cyber, and alliances. Intelligence was still secret, but some of its power now came from selective public disclosure. Biden used intelligence to warn. Trump returned to office with a different promise: to question the institutions again, reopen files, and reshape the intelligence relationship in real time. Donald Trump's second presidency is not history yet, it is a live file. John Ratcliffe became CIA director. Declassification, politicization, China, Russia, Iran, and institutional trust all sit inside the same open folder. This chapter cannot be closed honestly because it is still being written. That is why it matters. For the first time in this timeline, the audience is not looking backward, it is watching the file update in real time. From Truman to Trump, the pattern is not simple control, it is dependence. Presidents need intelligence to see threats, fight enemies, avoid blame, justify war, and act in places the public cannot watch. Some presidents expanded the CIA, some tried to restrain it, some used it as a weapon, some were damaged by its failures, some fought it in public, but none of them escaped the shadow Truman created. The question is not whether the CIA served the president, it did. The harder question is what the presidency became once every president had access to a secret hand. Because after 1947, no president entered the White House alone. Every one of them inherited the same machine, and every one of them left it for the next man, stronger, wounded, reformed, or more dangerous than before.